Hey, welcome everybody to the Max Show. That is Massive Abundance Exposed, where we expose the badass secrets of entrepreneurs all around the world. My name is Chris Stafford. I want to welcome you to the show. We've got the most amazing guest today, Mr. David Varrone. David is an accomplished entrepreneur. This guy is making buttloads of cash, and he's doing it out of helping other people. That's essentially what he does. He helps and coaches other people to run their home-based business and really develop the mindset, more importantly, behind the business to make that business a success. So, we interviewed David once before, and I'm really looking forward to talking to him again. He's just an awesome guy. So we're going to get started with the show, but before we do, make sure you get yourself to massiveabundanceinc.com. Sign in, get yourself some free goodies, and let's start talking to David Varrone. Welcome everybody to the Max Show. We have none other than Mr. David Varrone. How you doing, David?
I'm awesome, Chris. Nice to spend some time here with you this morning.
Hey, man, I'm honored that you're on the show, man. I really appreciate it. So listen, why don't you get started? You're doing all kinds of really cool things with your businesses, and you've got a great story that I know that we were talking about before we started recording. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit, just very briefly, about who is David Varrone.
Right on. Well, let's see. Who is David Varrone? If I had to define myself, I don't know. I'm a kid who grew up on the streets of Long Island, and that's New York, that is, and spent some time in the textile industry as a factory worker originally, and then kind of grew up there professionally. I actually was, that little place I lived on Long Island was a little town called Coram. And I grew up there. Most of my childhood was in Coram. And met my wife there, actually. She lived 2 doors down. So we kind of have this, we knew each other in elementary school, if you will, and junior high school and high school. And we went our separate ways, and then was blessed with the good fortune of getting back on the same path with each other. So that has been a blessing beyond blessings. And in addition to that, after spending a lot of time business-wise in the textile industry, growing a big business there, I guess if I had to say defining moments happened, but back in 2004, what happened was that industry basically dramatically changed. It no longer really worked to manufacture outside of the other side of the planet, so to speak. And so I left that and came home and have been in the home-based business industry, really coaching and mentoring and teaching people how they don't have to give up on life, that they can really get life going again from home and spend a lot of time with their families, time that they used to just think they had to spend with their boss for nothing.
That's great. That's great. I mean, and I know that a lot of what you're doing, David, and I know you pretty well, you do so much out of love and inspiration. I mean, essentially what you're doing is helping other people improve themselves, and it's just awesome what you're doing. And on top of it, doing so, you're making a buttload of cash. But before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about what is, I think that failure in terms of all of us entrepreneurs really defines us. And so if you had to pick maybe like what's the biggest failure you had or the biggest challenge that you had in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I guess the biggest failure I had in my own life is what kind of embridles my life mission statement now. There were times in my life where you would look at my life outwardly and say, hey, why is he giving up? It's like, what's going on? What's happening? And when I finally figured it out, I guess about 3 years ago, I went through this really intense self-study, an intense study of personal development, and quite honestly, the law of attraction got me so aggravated because I'm like, what is this? This never works. It consistently does not work. It consistently works in the opposite. And I caught myself in the middle of it because I began to see the connection between how I was behaving, my attitude, my emotion, and what would be successful. And then I got it to the point where I could see the pattern. Once I saw the pattern and started to talk to a few friends, business associates, they were like, all right, Dave, you need to put down the bong, you need to put down the peace pipe and get with it. And I was like, all right, let's watch this. And so I took on a couple of clients, if you will, coaching for nothing. And I started to coach them down this path of this emotional mapping to the future. And when I did that, they were freaked out by huge success, buddies, friends, and I kind of took all of that breakthrough and put it into a package that I have with a company that I own called Mindset Merchants. But make no mistake, we're able to monetize that by teaching people to be successful in their own business from home.
Interesting. So, and we'll definitely have all that information in the show notes. You know, everybody should tap into David Varrone because you definitely want to go to mindsetmerchants.com. So, could you be a little more specific in terms of like what is your business? If someone was to come to you and say, "David, help me, I want to make money from home."
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Great way to put it out there. Right now, I'm involved with one network marketing opportunity that the basis, the backbone and structure is marketing knowledge. So when I want to monetize things, and when I really want to get people, or I should say, when I want to teach people to monetize things, what better platform is there than one that the actual product that you're buying is the marketing knowledge? So that's what I do in terms of bringing things to market. In other words, bringing people into a network marketing opportunity. In addition to that, I'm involved in one other private venture that I pick and choose very carefully who I get involved with in, and that would be the monetizing side of things. But in terms of my mission with an individual, when someone gets involved with me in network marketing, most of the time they come to me with a worker bee mentality. You know, sometimes they're business owners, most of the time they're not. And in the process, my mission is really to get them to look at everything from a completely different perspective. There's different levels that everybody is looking at everything, and their perspective dictates their behavior. So when they change their perspective and they change their behavior, they get a different result.
Right.
So that's what really Mindset Merchants is designed, by design, is what I do with people when they get involved with it.
Got it. So you actually have, so Mindset Merchants, I mean, there's really like an educational component, if you will, where you're actually teaching people how to actually work businesses from home and have the correct mindset and have the correct strategy in place. But you also have then an income component too, where you can direct people to some kind of network marketing.
What I found is that I have Mindset Merchants is the corporate entity that I have, but all of the training and everything, and I use that obviously for accounting purposes and what have you. But the mission of that company is just to educate people. It's not something, the monetizing or the financial success comes from the direct sales network marketing that I work on, as well as private activity.
Right. But make no mistake, though, I just want people to understand that if they came to David, then they're going to get that Mindset Merchant, they're going to get the education part of it, but they're also going to, you can also help them with the monetization, making the bucks.
Exactly. You got it. And the main focus, because what I found is if their mind is in the right place, it's way easier for them to make money when they're, well, I used to have a closing on an email that's very unacceptable, so I'll try to edit it here, but my closing on my email used to be, teaching people's butts to give birth to their heads. And, from that standpoint, if we can change their mindset, if their perspective, they just become a different person. In other words, so my mission is really to teach them how to use the law of attraction to connect with other people. Right. When they know the connection is going to produce something that's going to be very positive, they're much more apt to make the connections. Right.
Off camera, I know we've talked a lot about this, but as a coach myself, and I am coaching realtors, and I actually just got off the phone yesterday with a woman who wants to pay me a lot of money to listen to her problems. And I was really trying to get to the crux of what her issue is. And all she wants to do is tell me her story and how she was abused and this and that. Do you ever find it frustrating sometimes? And how do you deal with people, or what do you say to people when they're just going off on tangents and telling you their story? And I mean, does that just drive you apeshit?
Oh my God. It makes me nuts because I was one of those people, dude. I used to pick up the phone and make it my mission to share the dilemma of the day with as many people as I could because they had to feel my dilemma. And I ruined a lot of people's days not knowing. In other words, I didn't know what I was doing when I was doing it. I'm sure that, this woman doesn't know what she's doing yet in terms of to you or to anyone else.
Right.
Here's what happened, though. When I was making some of these breakthroughs, I'm sitting here journaling like a lunatic, like all these thoughts and feelings. And what became apparent to me was I can either spend my time in the past or in the future.
True.
And so most of what I do when people come to me with that kind of stuff is that my thoughts are, man, I know exactly how you felt. Because, in some ways I've had some similar experiences. One thing is for certain. When I stopped focusing on that and I started focusing on what I wanted to have happen and how I wanted things to be, and little glimmers of that future started to show up, I started to feel better, and it went away. The need to share that kind of nonsense goes away when you focus on the future. So we got to get them to do that.
I love that. That's a great strategy. I really love that a lot. Now, you've got all kinds of really cool. You're always working on something. And tell me, what is like your next big vision for the future? What are you working on, David?
Next big. Actually, I'm involved with a partner in some software that the guy's great at inventing things. He's been a partner of mine in a couple of different things that we've done together. But he's actually on to something now that probably will revolutionize marketing. We're doing experiments with it. It does have to do with social media. And what I'm seeing happen, I'm inept at social media. I can admit that on this. Very good at this, at the standard way of marketing, at being direct in the approach. But as I look at social media, it's going to really be the ultimate conduit of transparency. So ultimately, everybody's going to go look to check your reputation, to check what you're doing, how you're doing it, via Facebook, LinkedIn, and these types of platforms. So I see an awful lot happening down those platforms. There's a couple of surprises to come up in the next month or so.
Wow, that sounds all the more reason that everybody should be checking in and signing into mindsetmerchants.com. So can't wait to hear about that. That sounds really exciting. It sounds like you've been an entrepreneur for a real long time. What do you say to other people when they say, David, I really want to, become an entrepreneur? Is there anything that held you back personally from being an entrepreneur?
Yes, a fear. And in the beginning, I toyed with the idea. The very first time I went into business in manufacturing, I toyed with the idea. I tell this story, it's kind of funny. I used to hang out behind a textile mill with a bunch of people and drink beer before I went home on a Friday night. It was because it was the best place to commiserate. And so I actually went to that hangout maybe 25 times, literally, saying I was going to do something, And it literally took, I had a snap. I actually had to get so angry one day at a situation that I stormed out and left. And when I stormed out and left, I went and did some more crazy things that ended up getting me in business. So I guess the biggest thing, and when I speak to people, I see this all the time, that stands in anyone's way is fear. And I label it false evidence appearing real. It really was. And it's always been. It never was the worst case. It was always the best case, sometimes better than the best case, as I went into business and grew. So from that standpoint, that's the way I teach.
I like that a lot. I really like that a lot. I was talking to a very successful real estate agent the other day, and she was telling me, I asked her, I says, what's the biggest thing that keeps realtors from becoming super successful? And she said that she thought in her mind it was two things. One was fear of failure, and one was fear of success. I think most of us can sort of relate to the fear of failure because, obviously we don't like that, the pain. But what's your take on the fear of success? I mean, how do you get people to deal with that?
I can identify with it. I basically had to identify with it twice. Once, outside of the home-based business arena in textiles, and then again, oddly enough, you'd think I'd been through it. So, and what happens in here, I'll define it in my interpretation. The fear of success is, it's like, wow, you have things start going right. So you get a bunch of new customers come in the door, bunch of activity financially, and now all of a sudden you have to manage the people. You have to actually perform, do some things for them, and point them in a direction, be a coach, a leader, and a mentor. And what happens, I think, or I should say, what happens is that builds in your mind, not in reality. And people become fear of success because they see it being way bigger, way more responsibility than it ultimately comes to being when you're actually doing it. So for me, it was a combination of all that responsibility, like how am I going to take care of all these people and make sure that it happens. So that part of the fear of success was there. And then the other fear of success that comes in, it's like funny conversations. I remember having a conversation with my accountant where he made a phone call. I hope you're putting money aside for taxes. And I'm like, what do you mean for taxes? I'm like, and so there's a cascade of financial planning that comes as part of the responsibility of when you're super successful. So that was very intimidating. All those things were actual, they stopped me from operating at full potential for a little while. But the bottom line is this: you must push through. Every single fear you have, the only way it becomes, goes to the other side of the journal is when you push through.
Right.
It's just like the roller coaster as a kid. You go
Yeah.
on the roller coaster and it works.
Absolutely.
You're fine.
One of the things that, you were such a great mentor for me personally, and one of the things that you really taught me is the importance of gratitude. And
Mm.
how do you employ gratitude in your daily life?
Actually, it's not only in my life, it's like I push my kids to understand and to get perspective so that they could constantly be in a state of gratitude. Here was a neat thing I noticed. You and I have a little common ground in our previous involvements in the past. We had definitely shared a lot of common ideas, common meetings, and how do I want to even shape this in terms of how all this is brought to the table? I don't know. Reframe that question again. I'm trying to bring something out that it's like getting stuck in the box.
Yeah, no good. Well, one of the things that you taught me that I really loved is really employing gratitude in my life. Writing a gratitude journal and really being grateful, and also making decisions from gratitude. That's just been so helpful for me, I think, in my success, is really coming at everything from a point of gratitude. A lot of people don't get that. And what is it that you're doing right now in your life to imply? Are you using journals? Are you?
Yeah. Okay. As I was wondering where you were going with that. Well, here's a neat thing that happened about, and I'll just where this all came from.
Uh-huh.
We as human beings, we are looking to make progress. In our quest to make progress, we often forget all the people that helped us, all the resources that came into play, all that good stuff that we didn't necessarily do ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So because we didn't do it ourselves, it's not on our list of things we did. So we tend to take it for granted. I met up with a guy named Andy Andrews, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, and we were at a conference. And one thing he got really, really straight is that when you're receiving a gift, he did a presentation where when you're receiving a gift and that person is standing before you, a certain type of feeling you make the other person feel as you're getting that gift. And he labeled it as gratitude. And in that state of gratitude, everybody around you feels appreciated and dynamically attracted to you. That took me my brain had to marinate on that lesson from Andy Andrews.
I really like that a lot. Could you repeat that for everybody?
Yeah, right back from my brain had to marinate, or further back?
Be further back when you said that when you're coming from a place of gratitude, everybody.
The whole deal, right? We all have this emotional component to who we're being. If I'm angry right now, there's a look on my face, and there's a way that the cadence in my eye. Look at my eyes now. So if I get angry at you, Chris, and I start talking, there's a certain feeling you're getting. Mm-hmm. Now, on the contrary, here we're sitting here, and we're having this dynamic conversation, and you've done nothing but be an enormous support, success. And it's like, can I reach through the phone and give you a hug? It's that kind of feeling. I have tremendous gratitude for you. Mm-hmm. So because I have tremendous gratitude for you, there has been a baseline to our relationship that has been great. It's years old. It's fantastic. Mm-hmm. You can create that with everybody. Right. And I never realized that. I because there is no interface that you can have with someone that you can't find something to be grateful for.
I love that. I love it. That is really cool. I heard a story recently about you and a homeless person. Do you care to share?
It's funny. Yeah, actually, it's a great story. So we try to get our kids involved with as many different things as we possibly can. Uh-huh. And in other words, we want them their lives to be brimming with activity, and a component of it should be charity and exposure to people that certainly don't have it as good as they have it. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that they're involved with, both my kids are involved with a program called Starland Arts, and that's not-for-profit. It has big-name people coaching, training, teaching them how to become stars, and in their involvement, part of it is charity activity. So we actually had to go to Fort Lauderdale, and I think it's the Wayne and Marty Huizinga homeless shelter in Fort Lauderdale, and they performed. And during the setup, I had the privilege of actually speaking to a gentleman who was homeless, and I call him, I guess I referred to him as he was sharply slept in. In other words, his clothing looked like he slept in his three-piece suit after too much to drink. But I walked over to him because I kind of had eye contact with him.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked as though he wanted to communicate with me. So I walked over, we talked about a few different things, and he gave me a little of his life story, which was a little too much perspective for me. I didn't know how could someone, an MIT graduate, super successful, lived in Connecticut, had a great job, and then, as he refers to it, the great recession of 2009 really had an impact on him, and he gave up.
Wow.
And he came to Florida because he knew no frostbite if he had to sleep under a bridge. He literally said that to me.
Wow.
And so we had a pleasant conversation, and he asked me what I did. And I point blank told him, I said, I teach people to be successful from home, and the first thing I do is, teach people to remove their heads from their asses. And I would say, with all due disrespect, you have stuck your head so far up that you're seeing out of your eyes a second time. And he laughed. And I said, but I tell you what, if anything ever changes and you really can change your perspective, I gave him one of my cards.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a crappy card too. It was one of those that didn't really have everything done right on it. It was a junky card I had in my wallet.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think anything of it. My daughter performs. Everything goes away. It's 9 months now. Whatever. September. Is it 9 months from September? About?
Sounds right. Yeah.
So yesterday I picked up this phone. I went like this to go dial, and I go, hello, no dial tone. So this guy's there.
Uh-huh.
Hey, David, how are you? Actually, he says, hey, Dave, how are you? And I said, great, who's this? So then we get into a little bit of a conversation, and he said to me, I just wanted to call you to tell you, your conversation with me, where you basically said, I allowed myself to focus so badly on the loss of that job that it affected my wife, it affected my kids. It affected all the job interviews I went on because my attitude was awful. And no gratitude. But when you're in a homeless shelter, it's hard to find the fact that you're still breathing.
Wow.
But he got past it. He's back. He's now working on getting his life back together. But he picked up the phone to call me to tell me that he really appreciated that conversation. It was a turning point in his life. So yesterday I was kind of freaked out for that 2 hours. I never had anybody call me and tell me that I did make a difference like that, that it wasn't part of something else. This was just me being me and him being him, and that was the biggest reward I've gotten in my entire life.
That is so awesome. That is amazing. I mean, and that just goes to show the energy that surrounds you and that you bring to the relationships with people that are involved with you. So all the more reason that people should definitely get together with David Varrone. In wrapping this thing up, one of the things I always love asking is, David, let's just say that you find somebody that wants to meet with you, a budding entrepreneur, if you will, somebody that wants to start a home-based business, somebody that really wants to know the secret of David Varrone, the secret of what it takes to make it as an entrepreneur. What's the one or two things you would tell that person?
Wow. One or two things. Number one, don't call me unless you really want to change. I mean, really want to, not just, it's like, don't just pick up the phone and say, Dave, I want to make a lot of money. I saw this great interview with you or whatever. Or I saw this great opportunity website that I think is connected to you. First, because before every opportunity will work for you, and listen to what I just said, before everything will work for you, you've got to work for you. So before you pick up the phone and call me, sit down. Because this will be the number one success pivotal point in your life. Take out one of these notes. Here we go. These are $1. I think $1 for like 3 of them at Walmart.
Yep.
This thing says, I don't know if you can see it.
The compensation?
This one says Gold Journal. Okay, so Gold Journal Gratitude. Before you call me, write down 5 goals that you want to make happen in the next 3 months, and write down 5 things that you're grateful for, and then call me. Because if you call me with those things, I'll know exactly who you are and if what we can do is magic.
Wow.
That's it.
That's great. I love it. That is so cool. David, that is so inspirational because, it's funny. With a lot of times I'm talking to these people, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is when I'm talking to people on the phone, you can really sense for whether or not they really want to help themselves and whether they really want to improve. And you can't help other people unless they want to help themselves. So that is so key. David, thank you so much. This has been such an honor to have you on the show. I really appreciate it. Great sage words of wisdom. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you very much, Chris. As you know, anything I could do to help you and whatever you're working on all the time, I'm yours.
All right. That sounds great, David. Thanks so much. And we'll make sure that everybody gets their happy butts over to mindsetmerchants.com. David Varrone, you are the best, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, take care. Hey, was that an amazing show? I just love talking to David. He is just such an inspiration to me. David Varrone, to me, is just the embodiment of helping entrepreneurs really rock their businesses and doing it from a place of love and inspiration because he's helping other entrepreneurs with their mindset. And there is nothing, people, nothing more important as an entrepreneur than your mindset. So David does that in spades. So make sure you get yourself to mindsetmerchants.com. You definitely want to sign in, get to know him. He will help you with the mindset, with the education. He'll help you make money, you name it. So really glad I had a chance to talk to David today. Kudos to you, David. And before I go, just make sure everybody gets yourself to mindsetmerchants.com and also massiveabundanceinc.com. Go on to massiveabundanceinc.com and sign in. Get yourself some free goodies. Make sure you send some love down below. Make a comment. Let me know what you think about David. And let us know what you think about the show. I'm really glad we had a chance to do this today. And I'm looking forward to talking to you guys again soon. My name again is Chris Stafford with Massive Abundance, and may massive abundance be yours.